You just see one plant just like wilt to death and fall over and just be pissed as shit, and you're like, what the f***'s going on with that?
How do we kill them? I recommend a two-pronged approach, my friends.
You can see a couple mites in there. Mites in the soil are beneficial.
It wasn't necessarily our method as much as it was the virus or the disease that crept into our facility.
When you see something and you want to freak out, don't freak out and start calling everybody, say you have mites.
HydroGuard is more expensive than cocaine.
You can dip them into a bacterial larvicide containing Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis.
This is what large corporations do. They will buy brands, they will cheapen it, cut it, degrade the brand until you no longer trust them.
We had to wipe the entire facility. I mean, when I mean wipe, I mean you cut the entire facility.
Don't feel too bad if you get a thrips ingress into your location because they're everywhere.
So we can use predatory wasps and some really cool ones. And here, it's better to use the nematodes and the predator mites.
It is fucking devastating. Some of my favorite fucking strains.
Oh, man, I hate bugs. Crawling around my garden like they own the place, just waiting for a moment to breed and infest. Really, someone needs to make a video about how to handle these guys. What's that? That's what we're doing here today? Oh, sweet. Let's get into it. We'll start this video with some basic pest control concepts, then get into more detail about individual pests and how to handle them. And we'll even be chatting with other well-known gardeners about their pest issues and how they won the battle. Hey guys, stand by. We'll chat in a minute. First and foremost, we want to give a quick warning to all growers of smokable or edible plants. All forms of pest control management need to be 100% organic. The pest control methods used for ornamental plants are not the same as edible plants. The synthetic, chemical-based, systemic pesticides and herbicides used in ornamental farming should never go anywhere near your garden. But, luckily for us, the science behind organic pest control has matured enough, and access to beneficial insects and microorganisms has become easy enough that using organic methods to control and eliminate pests has become an essential part of every professional garden. The actions you take to manage your pests on a daily basis are greatly going to depend on the amount of pests you have. This is known as pressure to pest control professionals. We can divide pest pressure into 3 different categories: no bugs, bugs just discovered, and full-blown infestation. A garden that has no bugs still needs to be treated as though an infestation is right around the corner. Professional growers create standard operating procedures to help manage and schedule certain pest control activities. This is called IPM, or Integrated Pest Management. Monitoring plants daily for signs of pests, using sticky traps, defoliation, and foliar sprays are all tools that can be used in every indoor garden. As a part of our daily gardening tasks, we are constantly removing any large fan leaves and of course any dead plant matter that we find. Defoliation not only helps reduce the hiding spots for large pests like thrips and mites, it also allows for better airflow in the garden, which is going to help reduce the microorganism pests such as botrytis and powdery mildew. Here in our basement grow tent, we make sure that we're able to see through all the plants to the back side of the tent for proper pest prevention. Foliar spraying is something I tend to avoid doing in my garden because some of the plants we grow have valuable oils on them, or the leaves themselves are edible, and the oils present in most foliar sprays adversely affect flavor and can also break down the essential oils we value on plants like basil and cannabis. Now, things are going to escalate quite a bit when you first actually discover pests in your garden. We're going to call this code yellow. At this stage, not only do we continue the same IPMs as before with monitoring, sticky traps, defoliation, and possible foliar sprays, but then we include new methods, such as introducing beneficial organisms and physical barriers. Diatomaceous earth and perlite are physical barriers used in heavy amounts on the surface of your growing medium, which actually cuts the soft skin on soil-dwelling larvae. We'll talk more about that in a bit. The use of beneficial organisms such as predatory mites and nematodes, or even using microorganisms such as spinosad, Bacillus amyloliquefaciens, or Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, is an absolute game changer and should be considered immediately upon the discovery of pests. The last and most serious tier of pest pressure we'll call code red, and that is full-blown infestation. At this point, if you have a full-blown infestation and you are unable to control it, we might need to have a serious discussion. Cue camera 2. Hey, it's me. So listen, if you have a really bad pest infestation, it might be time to consider a full reset. Now I know, you've got that one plant that matters to you more than most of your in-laws, but sometimes the most effective way to clear a bad pest infestation is just remove all plants from the garden, clean everything from top to bottom, and start fresh with some new seeds and some new growing medium. Don't worry, you got this. Back to camera one. However, if you absolutely have to save a plant or cultivar, there is still hope. We're lucky to have Jason from Dark Horse Genetics. He's going to be our first guest today. He's been waiting patiently in his office to tell us a very interesting story about a pest problem that he had and what they were able to do to overcome it. Jason, it's my understanding that you've always been a devout organic gardener. However, recently you've made some really big shifts in your growing practices as a result of a hidden microscopic issue. Oh, sorry if I caught you in the middle of something. You mind telling us more about that?
What is up? I know there's a lot of people probably who watch this show who maybe haven't really picked up on it or did pick up on it, but from locally, from the Denver region, who are kind of wondering what happened to Dark Horse flower. It's not on the shelves as of late. And yeah, we haven't really been on a shelf for probably over 6 months. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. I kind of want to talk about our flower in our garden. And this is when I talk about, people generally don't talk about this shit publicly, you know, their struggles or issues that they may have. But we started to have issues that I could identify early as February and March of last year, 2023, in our garden when I was walking through or looking at plants. I mean, it was clear as day. But we started seeing, well, basically one of the first indications was the plants weren't flushing. So we didn't get a white ash when we were smoking our flower. And trust me, I've run an identical setup for over a decade. I mean, I've run the same nutrients, the same pot size, the same drip irrigation, it's dialed in. So when I say it's dialed in, I mean, you shouldn't really see anomalies too much. It's like it should kind of just consistently hit what you know it's going to hit. But as we get into February, March, and I start seeing the flower, I'm like, this tastes funky. Like, why does this taste funky? I'm like, this literally doesn't flush right. We should get a nice clean white ash. We're not getting clean white ash. And then as I kind of look deeper, I start to see plants that are kind of paling out and yellowing, and some of our plants are dying before they can even get to harvest. And like right in the middle of a drip irrigation tray, you just see one plant just like wilt to death and fall over and just be pissed as shit and be like, what the fuck's going on with that? And then you start seeing them, just sort of spotting them out in the grow, and you're like, what the like, this is something. With all of my experience, I'm happy to admit I was stumped. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. And as I started to go through it, we identified essentially what we're looking at here is a bad uptake, we're not at the root level, we have a major problem. And that's where it started to get me to think, like, what's going on here? And my point to this is, it wasn't necessarily our method as much as it was the virus or the disease that crept into our facility. And the disease that I'm speaking about, or virus that I'm speaking about, is specifically Fusarium and Pythium, and seeing the issues that it kind of takes with the plant, which this will lead into HLVD, which I'm happy to speak about. But the Fusarium was something that I did not identify, and it took me for a loop all my years of experience. And then as we started cutting open root balls and seeing browning and sludgy and mushy, and you're going, what the fuck is this? So that really started to affect our crops in a serious way. But our flower got to a point where I did not like the flower. And I do this because I care passionately about cannabis flower, about the way that it tastes, the way, it's got to be clean when it's consumed. But at the same time, I'm a guy who cares more about flavor than anything else above board at all. I know many of the people in the industry care about looks, THC, high THC yield. Everything's got to look like Oreos now, just completely covered in trikes or whatever. I get it. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. I just care about fucking flavor. Give me flavor, give me dank. And when my cannabis doesn't seem to be flavor or dank for me, I'm like, there's a major issue. And I have enough experience in this industry and in life to know when I have a problem, like, something's off here. So this was a major red flag for us. But as I said, the garden essentially almost couldn't even finish itself. And this started going, didn't matter the strain, it started kind of happening garden-wise, or whole warehouse-wide. And I was like, oh, this is a real fucking problem. How are we going to address this? How are we going to beat this? And I'll say straight up, I didn't identify it, actually. We had J-Lo. We had J-Lo come in, shout out Treat Show. But J-Lo was kind of the one saying, this is Pythium, and you have this. And I'm going, bullshit, I don't want to hear it. This is Pythium, you have it. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it. And we had to wipe the entire facility. I mean, when I mean wipe, I mean you cut the entire facility. So now you're looking at a facility that, I'll be blunt, these rooms to us, which I'm one of the smallest facilities in this entire state, but these rooms to us, which are 15 liters roughly, I mean, we're getting 15 pounds a pot high quality, high end pot on these rooms, but we're selling them for, a decent price point because we're so boutique. But these rooms can cost me, anywhere for $25,000 to lose every time one goes down. 4 flower rooms or 5 flower rooms, you're looking at $125,000 loss immediately. Not to mention the coverage that you got to cover to keep employees, staff, to relaunch your entire grow. It's fucking devastating. And trust me, I've reset a perpetual many times in my life for one reason or another, and they're never fun. But when you really start getting into a lean market and issues that moving forward, pound prices falling, like everything kind of getting upside down where you can't make it make sense on a calculator, and then you have a devastating situation where you have to basically wipe your entire garden and start fresh. And that's really when we bring in JLo. After that point, I'm like, we're really fucked. I'm like, JLo, help with this situation, identifying this. And at the same time that this happens, we start cleaning up our product. Not even cleaning up, we start essentially testing everything that's in the facility. I know how to pivot better than anybody in this motherfucking business. I swear to God, I was built for this shit. So first of all, I wasn't terrified, but I just knew it's time to fucking bootstrap up and let's get this thing back on track as quickly as possible. So I was like, all right, well, HLVD is now the boogeyman that's sweeping 2023. Everyone's scared about it, and all the clones are dirty all over the fucking place. And some of the more vetted clone vendors are out here showing you their clean lists and everything. And I'm going, I don't really know where we sit with this. And to be honest, I was scared to look. After the year that I've had, for the first 6 months that I've had, one devastation after the next in this legal small little facility, I'm going, Jesus, what next? But you can't ignore a problem and act like it's going to get better in any way. And I wasn't willing to sell clones to people if I thought that there was a chance that we would be furthering this truly epidemic of a problem with HLVD. So I was like, all right, let's fucking test it. Shout out to Toomey, who we had come on the show, really educated. Dr. Tassa really educated me on HLVD. But she was able to come in, test our entire facility multiple times. And we're talking something that would be $10, $20 a test. And we have 60, 70 strains that we've introduced back in the facility. And we're testing all of this. And I'm going to be real with you. We had about a 75% failure rate. It is fucking devastating. Some of my favorite fucking strains. Some of the shit, I'm talking Skittles and Banners, and I was just like, oh, fuck, like, we'll never be able to use these again. Like, I will never be able to use this shit again. I shouldn't even ethically be able to breed these. And most people will probably not tell you that's what the results that they got from when they dug deep into their library and found what they found. And I was fucking floored. I was like 75 fucking percent. And I remember the day that we went in there and I was like, I have a pair of fucking scissors in my hand and I'm going to cut everything on this list that has a red fucking mark next to it. And I went through that facility and we cut everything down that had HLVD to move forward, except for some of the truly rare treasured ones. We brought them out of the facility in the sense of like a snip to kind of clean up in a way or whatever. And that is a whole other process that truly is being pioneered right now. But I don't want to get into super detail. I think it's more of a show for JLo to talk about, because JLo, had a theory in this, and it kind of turned out to be true. Where when we were able to take our infected plants and put them in a different environment, and then really coddle them and be able to get the new growth to kind of shoot out and only clone the new growth, not tissue culture, not micropropagation, but only really the new shoots. And with the ability, I know that most people either won't believe or can't do this, but with the ability to test everything. We could test every top of every plant with Tassa and Dr. Tassa and Toomey Glow. So we could test everything. We could test the roots, we could test the tissues of every single surface that we were about to clone. And we could test before to see if it's present in here, because we know HLVD moves throughout the plant. So we were able to find sections of the plant that didn't have it and clone that, and then clone out of that, and then clone out of that 2-3 times. And I'm happy to say with full confidence that it took us a little over 6 months, I would say. We just did another test round of a shit ton of genetics that we brought back basically into our library after going through this testing procedure process. And we had 2 strains out of 70 something come up with HLVD present in it and removed them from the facility. And I'm like, we have a totally clean fucking facility. It was a nightmare of a process to go through. a nightmare of a process to go through. But it means so much to us. And at the same time, we're able to clean up this fusarium. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a way where, you know, with the heavy metal failures that we came across, it was really like devastating to me because I didn't know the answer, but the answer was something that I didn't want to do. And I am a person who resists change. I used to cry in between grade changes of second, third grade, third and fourth and fifth. Like I didn't want a new teacher. I never wanted shit to change. I don't like change. So I've been running the same shit forever. But as we got into these issues, again, JLo kind of came in with the treat and was saying, you know, the way to get rid of this is to grow sterile and start using H2O2, go to the Rockwell cubes, run a cocoa mix, run a salt mix, get away from your organic mix, get away from your soil mix, run this sterile, and you will defeat all of the fusarium issues that you're having, and you'll have a clean product, no heavy metal issues, anything along those lines. I was very resistant to doing it, because I am an organic guy, and I'm like, I know I like my soil inputs, and like, you know, but I did what we need to do in that facility in particular to keep that facility going, because you're looking at a spot where you're 4, 5, 6 months into virtually no revenue. There is nothing happening there that you can do. You have one failure after the next failure after the next failure, one issue after the next issue after the next issue, and there's no revenue coming in. Oh, by the way, you've got to maintain these $20,000 monthly overheads at all times and keep your payroll going. And it's like, it's very fucking stressful. And all you want to do is fix it quickly, as quick as you possibly can. But cannabis there isn't quick fixes in cannabis. I think we all know this, but when you have a problem, you can fix it. It's not going to fix the old affected, fucked up growth. The new growth will come out of that looking great. And it's hard sometimes to do everything right and sit and wait, especially when you're under pressure. So as we get through, you know, this issue, switch our growing technique largely onto what I would call the treat method, because she educated me and my staff tremendously about the use of cocoa, salts, H2O2, and, you know, tips and tricks of kind of how to defeat this, and really how to identify, you know, that woman can spot HLVD with her eyes. I mean, I know that's bullshit. Most of you people are like, well, shut the fuck up. But I'm telling you, like, with experience, with dealing with this day in and day out for a while and really digging in and dialing in on what the fuck's happening here and truly caring about plant health, we were able to really kind of get in here and, you know, kind of perform what I would consider something that I didn't think would happen, almost a miracle in the sense of, like, we do have Skittles back. I mean, I know there's other Skittles sources to get, but we do have Skittles back testing totally clean. We do have all the banners testing totally clean, the Juliets, like some of the most prized possessions, the conjugal visits, the roid rages, some of the long-held males that we had. So it's like, okay, now in a much more comfortable position or place to be at. But yeah, that was, you know, right around May, you know, June. You think, you know, an old horse doesn't learn new tricks. So this horse learned a lot of fucking new tricks last year. A lot of new tricks last year. I'm happy with what we have going on at Dark Horse now. I've never been happier. I'm so excited to release what we have coming up. So those that might have heard the start of this podcast and say, what happened to all the Dark Horse flower? I voluntarily pulled it because it didn't meet my fucking standard. It just didn't meet my standard. But wait till you see what the fuck we have now. Because with the help of, you know, many input adjustments and tweaking basically everything, the new product that we have to show you guys is fucking phenomenal. And I can't wait to release it. I know we basically just sent it off to testing. And as it comes back, we're going to put out a small batch, 7-10 pounds or something like that. We're happy to announce on the old Instagram. I'm going to redo the website. But yeah, we'll tell you where the drop is, Denver, Colorado, or anyone in Colorado. But yeah, you guys really got to check out this new flower, because I'm telling you, I've never worked harder alongside my staff to try to repair something and truly make like something special return. The Bruce Banner 5 that we have to put in these, you know, that we're putting out in pre-pack is fucking like, whew. And I haven't said that in a while. So, and I just feel much more equipped to deal with shit where it's like, okay, we literally are identifying like issues, just spotting them now. Like our plant game has gone up tenfold over this year. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That shit is true, because we're strong now. We are really strong. And what's coming online is fucking sexy. It's going to be small batches, fuck. I'm not worried about the future of Dark Horse. I'm excited about the future of Dark Horse. I will say this much. Last year was a real life motherfucker. It was a real life motherfucker through and through. And there were points when I was low as shit. I was depressed as shit. I was, like, does this even make sense to kind of do at times? And, sometimes I think like that even now when we sell a pound off for $600 and it costs me $700 or something to get to market. It's like, what the fuck? Shit happens like that. But at other times it's like you pull a crop that's like special. We just pulled some great pie and I was like, holy fuck, man. Like, this shit is special. Like, truly special. So I was just like, literally, if this is something that, I don't know, like means something to you like it means something to me, I invite you to check out this cannabis because I truly am proud of it.
Wow. Thanks again for sharing this story. I think the most important lesson we can learn from this story as growers, business owners, or just as people in general is that the ability to adapt and pivot is key to overcoming many issues, not just in the garden, but in life. Jason went from being an organic gardener to a sterile hydroponic gardener, not because he wanted to, but because that's what his garden needed at the time. Pythium and Fusarium are two microscopic organisms which fall under the pathogenic fungus category. And here in this basement garden, it is a #1 pest concern. When I first started growing in this basement, I noticed an immediate issue with the success rate of seedlings and cuttings, almost to the point of basically 75% failure rate. I was able to easily identify the issue, however finding a solution was not so easy. I tried completely sterile processes with hydrogen peroxide and rockwool cubes, and I tried organic soil loaded with microbial products which promised to eliminate these issues, all without any success. However, while searching YouTube and holding back tears, I came across Mark with Perfect Gardens. Mark not only helped recommend the perfect product for me, but he also helped me understand why I had failed in the past. Previously, I had tried a product called HydroGuard by Botanicare, which was suggested as a possible solution to my pythium issues. The main active ingredient in this product is Bacillus amyloidoquafaciens, a beneficial bacteria known for killing pathogenic fungus. However, I was having poor results and spending a lot of money in the process. What Mark had helped me realize is that Botanicare had watered down this product dramatically, all while increasing the price. And what do you know? We have Mark here to help explain this to us in his own words. Thank you so much for being here. What can you tell us about HydroGuard?
HydroGuard is more expensive than cocaine.
Ooh, very interesting. Please tell more.
I'm actually making a request from everyone that listens to this video to please boycott Botanicare. Although, before I'm too much of a negative Nancy, let's go ahead and talk about the benefits of the root inoculant that's in this product, because that part is actually good. So, HydroGuard has the specific type of bacteria called, and forgive me for this, Bacillus
amyloidoquafaciens.
And the benefit of this bacteria does actually a number of different things. First, it creates a host on your roots, similar to nitrogen-fixing bacteria, and it feeds off the exudates. Although this specific bacteria is a natural fungicide specifically, it will help you fight against botrytis, versilium, pythium. So let's go ahead and get into the next parts of the information because this is the guaranteed analysis, right? It says that it has 0.038% in the entire bottle of whatever it is. And it contains a minimum of 1.00 times 10 to the fourth power CFUs per milliliter. So after doing research on other brands, I checked out obviously the HydroGuard, the Revitalized, the liquid, 32 ounce, and the Revitalized concentrate, Recharge, Azos, Mycos, and Bioenhancer. As you can see here, a lot of these products actually have other products in them besides this specific bacteria. So I, in my mind, could not use any of these other products because it's doing like an apples to oranges comparison until I found a product called Revitalize. So as I swing it over here, I ended up discovering that HydroGuard is charging us 4 cents per 10,000 CFU per milliliter. As you can see right here, Revitalize RTU is charging you 0.0000008 cents per 10,000 CFU per milliliters. And then the concentrate is even cheaper than that. It's actually 0.000000004 per 10,000 CFU per milliliter. Cocaine costs 0.037 cents per 10,000 CFU per milliliter. I'm serious, go look it up. This company is owned by Hawthorne, and Hawthorne is owned by Scott's. Scott's is owned by Monsanto. Monsanto's is owned by Bayer, which is a pharmaceutical company. So that was like boing, 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 all kinds of major red flags. Although right here, guys, this one company, Botanicare, which is owned by a company that owns literally 90% of the seeds that are grown in the United States every year, corn and wheat. This company is not a good company. Look it up. I'm telling you, I would highly recommend if you're buying this company. I haven't even got into all their other products yet, and I'm going to do it. Although right here, Revitalize, right here, I'm going to show you the price. Costs $14.29. The 16-ounce concentrate costs $15.49. Right here from Walmart, $259. If you go over and try and find the quart 32-ounce, that's $37. Guys, we have to start slowing down this industry. We have to start making better decisions. The wealth that this industry has the potential to create for various people out there is phenomenal. Although why should a farmer go through the entire struggle of growing any crops out there in this world, whether it's tomatoes, garlic, parsley, when corporations are just going to siphon every dollar possible out of the industry? This is one product, and I'm showing you right here the cost analysis. I can tell you this is what large corporations do. They will buy brands that have some type of authentic grassroots movement. They will cheapen it, cut it, degrade the brand until you no longer trust them.
Wow, Mark, that's crazy. Thanks for sharing that with us. And please note, neither Mark or I are sponsored by any of these products. Now with that said, here is our proven recipe for eliminating pythium, aka damping off. First, we clean the water and everything else in the garden with hypochlorous acid. Bleach or hydrogen peroxide can be used as alternatives, but hydrochlorous acid is preferred. Once everything is clean, we can then apply the recommended amount of Revitalize. This process ensures the only microorganism to colonize is our beneficial bacteria. Truth is, having a large consortium of beneficial organisms can help prevent these issues, but there are times where that just isn't enough. Now let's shift to another indoor pest that many indoor gardeners are going to have to deal with at some point: fungus gnats. Here with us today to drop some really great knowledge on this subject is one of my personal favorite gardeners and editor of Garden Culture magazine, Everest Fernandez. Thanks for joining us. It's an honor to be speaking with you. I see you've had your coffee today. I am a big coffee lover myself. Could you please share with us what you know about fungus gnats?
Fungus gnats! Grow room threat, orange. Small, pesty flies, 2 or 3 millimeters long like mini mosquitoes, but they don't bite or sting, no. Instead, they love to crawl and creep around on plants and growing media. They fly around stupidly, getting in your face, buzzing from place to place slowly and seemingly without purpose, but somehow very irritating at the same time, kind of like my follower-in-law on Facebook. Some growers confuse them with winged root aphids, which are better flyers with a rounder, broader body and are more attracted to your grow lights. Sure, the adult gnats themselves don't do any damage, but they love to fly into my eyes and up my frickin' nose and seem to have a sixth sense of when I have both my hands full and I can't swat at them, but okay, it's their larvae hatched from tiny eggs laid by the female adults in moist growing media that cause all the issues, especially to young plants. The fungus gnat larvae primarily feed on organic material, algae, and soil fungus, but in increasing numbers, that necessitates a broader diet, including roots and plant stem tissue. Yes, they nibble on your plant's roots, people. This in turn creates wounds, which open up the gateway to secondary infections from the likes of pythium, phytophthora, and fusarium. Seedlings and younger plants can die. Older plants can stop growing, leaves will discolor and wilt, and nutrient and water uptake will slow.
So, Everest, how do we get fungus gnats in the first place?
Fungus gnats can hitch a ride into your grow room on your clothes or cuttings accepted from friends, through gaps between doors and walls, and soil, compost, and soilless potting mixes. Okay, now that we know our enemy better, how do we kill them? I recommend a two-pronged approach, my friends. Target adults with foliar sprays and traps, and larvae with nematodes, mites, or biological larvicides. Now, you should always have some yellow sticky traps in your store cupboard. Even better, already in your garden. Sticky yellow traps are a handy monitor for pests, not just a reactive measure. Peel the protective wrapper from both sides and lay them on the tops of your pots like this, rather than hanging in the air, so they catch emerging adults. Next, call your local grow store and ask them if they have any predatory insects in stock. Do this right now, because chances are they may have to order them, which can take a few days. For the adults, try something like Asmax, a botanical insecticide, miticide, and nematicide. Use as a foliar spray for a few days before sending in any beneficial insects. Make up a medium-strength solution, 1 fluid ounce per gallon, and foliar apply immediately. Work fast, wear a respirator mask, and get the hell out of there, just like the zombie apocalypse, my friends.
Okay, and how do you like to kill the larva?
As for killing the babies, if you have cuttings or seedlings in blocks, you can dip them into a bacterial larvicide containing Bacillus thuringiensis, Israelensis, or BTI such as Gnatrol WDG or mosquito dunks. Whew, sorry, got a little carried away. Remember, if using multiple combat methods, it's important to know that they're fully compatible with one another, as some pesticide products will kill your predators. Parasitizing nematodes are incredibly effective against fungus gnat larvae and can decimate fungus gnat numbers in days while causing no harm whatsoever to your plants. The nematode species of choice for this application is Steinanema feltiae. You can buy them in little packets. It looks like dust, but lurking within are millions of tiny little beneficial nematodes. Note the use-by date on the packet. The nematode enters the body openings in many types of soil larvae and uses them to breed, killing the larva in the process. Excellent. Fill a watering can with dechlorinated water and then add the nematodes and stir. Apply carefully and evenly to the surface of your growing media. I redirect the drain pipe of my ebb and flow table to catch the runoff so I can reapply to other plants. They won't survive long sat in water, so use it up right away. Hypoaspis miles, a tiny predatory mite invisible to the naked eye, has recently been reclassified with an even catchier name. Stratiolaelaps schimidis. Many growers deploy these mites as a preventative measure, as they can last up to 70 days without food, so why not just let them hang out just in case? Usually they come prepackaged in sachets or tubes of peat and vermiculite. A 34-ounce container of Stratiolaelaps schimidis retails for around $40 and can treat between 100 and 200 3-gallon pots, so it's not going to break the bank. Sprinkle it onto the surface of your growing media and you're done. If you can't get a hold of predatory mites, then try a top dressing with diatomaceous earth, Growstone Gnat Mix, or Gnat Block by Flying Skull. I use Diahydro, which is fairly chunky. Try to get the most powdery stuff at the bottom of the bag. Diatomaceous earth is fine for us to handle, but to a newly born gnat, it's like crawling over a razor wire. It's only really effective when dry, so try not to get it wet. Finally, don't forget to secure your air inputs with intake filters or bug screens, and always keep your grow room clean and tidy. If you've been gardening outdoors, take a shower and change your clothes and footwear before entering your indoor garden.
Wow, thank you, Everest. That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I'll let you get back to that coffee, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Now let's talk about one of the worst plagues to ever hit the indoor gardening world, with over 150,000 offspring being produced every 2 weeks by a single female. A growing resistant to chemical pesticides, a pest feared by the devil himself, the spider mite. Luckily for us, as we speak, Matthew Gates, an expert in all things pest related, is having a chat with Chris, aka Mr. Grow, about spider mite control. And he has invited us to join in on the conversation.
Let's move on to spider mites. So another thing that's very, very common in the grow room, indoors, outdoors. Talk to us about spider mites. What are spider mites? Maybe talk about their life cycle of spider mites and how to battle them.
So absolutely. So spider mites, I love to talk about because they're amazingly adaptive. They feed on over 1,300 rather plants out there that are documented. And they also are able to detoxify like toxins and things that the plant produces that could be poisonous for it. Spider mites are haplodiploid, so it only takes one female mite for you to have an infestation. They will, when populations get very large, they tend to produce more dense webbing. They'll produce small amounts of webbing when they're a small colony, and they produce round circular eggs. And they have a red color, and they often have this sort of two-spotting, which is actually their intestinal pouches. But if they haven't fed very much yet, or if they're a particular subtype, like the red form that's just bright cinnabar color, then you might think, oh, it doesn't have the two spots. That might not be the two-spotted spider mite, but indeed, they come in several different colors, like green or whitish or reddish or orangish, so you just have to be vigilant. But what happens is that when the population gets high, they will sort of aggregate at the top of the plant, and they will try to use silk in order to catch the air, like baby spiders often do, and move a short distance, or sometimes, in some cases, quite a long distance on air currents. And this is actually a common thing with a lot of arachnids and insects.
In regards to combating them, do you have any recommendations for sprays they should use and like how often? I know we talked about application rates a little bit, but can you give us a little bit of background on the sprays that can be used?
Absolutely. So I think that it's very useful to utilize things like wettable sulfur, not burned sulfur, but wettable sulfur granules that you can apply. It's really great with plants that don't have some sort of a like if they have delicate flowers that you're trying to, so avoid damaging. Sometimes you can use this and you won't have a problem as much as you have with some harsh chemistry potentially, or harsher chemistry. You can get biocontrols for them as well. Like for the spider mites, Persimilis is really good. I've often recommended them quite a bit.
That's right, Matt. Wettable sulfur and predator mites are a great choice for dealing with spider mites. A popular standard operating procedure for dealing with a heavy spider mite infestation is first removing all plants from the grow room, taking cuttings from less infected areas of the plants if possible, and fully dunking that young cutting in a solution of wettable sulfur. After 3 days, that cutting is then cleaned by another full dunk in water mixed with Dr. Bronner's mint soap. This helps clean the plant in preparation for the predator mites and ensures no spider mites remain. And guys, while I have you here, do you mind talking a little bit about thrips?
There's over 5,000 species of thrips, but a very small percentage of them are actually pest species. The one that most people are dealing with are western flower thrips. There's also other ones like chili thrips and onion thrips, which are also very common to deal with. But I think western flower thrips is the most documented for sure. And most research actually concerns western flower thrips. As they reproduce, essentially, and western flower thrips in particular will actually put their eggs inside the plant tissue. So you can run into a situation where somebody maybe is a nursery and they spray their plants or they do whatever, and they're thinking, oh, no thrips, it's fine. They sell it to somebody, and thrips are coming out of the tissues. Little baby nymphs. And those nymphs come out, they feed on the plant tissues, and they create this sort of silvering or scarring damage from their feeding. And you can usually tell thrips from other pests, not only because they have this like thin kind of like cigar shape, especially as nymphs, but also as adults they have these feathery wings. So if you're scoping them, you can kind of see them. They have a very, very specific kind of look to them. And that allows them to get into crevices really easily. But as the nymphs feed, they will turn into pupae, and those pupae will often fall to the ground, which is why a comprehensive treatment for thrips often includes something in the soil, either a biocontrol or some sort of a spray application so that you can get them, or onto the ground itself if you're growing inside, because whether you're in a greenhouse or in just like a home grow situation, the floor can also be a residual place for various pests, but especially these pupae. And then over time, those pupae will develop and adults will come out. And they're very, very agile. They'll fly all over the place, and they're really great at getting into places. Many research reports have been produced simply describing how good thrips are at evading destruction and getting into new places. So my favorite way to combat thrips is actually using predatory mites and maintaining a population at a certain level inside your home grow space. Swirsky or cucumerous mites are preferred for this. They'll also feed on other things like whiteflies or sometimes moth eggs, for example, as well as russet mites and broad mites and things like this. So you can get kind of a generalized protection from having that population there. But in addition to that, you can also use things like the wettable sulfur I mentioned. Many thrips have actually developed quite a robust resistance to some of even the harsher chemistries that I wouldn't advocate for people to utilize, sort of systemic pesticides and things like this. And then the resistance makes it even less of a viable choice.
Wow, thank you two for all your expertise. Finally, we have one more guest and topic to discuss, and that is the difference in pest control methods when you're in a sterile hydroponic garden versus an organic soil-based garden. And to help guide us through these concepts, we have on the show Jeremy from Build a Soil. I think he can really help explain it best. Hey Jeremy, thanks for being here.
Hello and welcome.
Could you please tell us your thoughts on pest prevention for organic soil-based gardens?
Nature abhors a void, and it fills it with things. So what we've learned at Build a Soil is that we fill it with what we want. That's a permaculture principle. And then nature's less likely to fill it with things that you don't want. And by doing that, we put in, there are mites in here, there are rove beetles in here, there's worms in here, there's decaying things in here, but we're creating a army of warriors that are out competing. And that's very different than trying to create a sterile environment. Let me show you what it looks like under both of these. You're starting to get some of this reaction from the kashi blend and the compost and the moisture. And if we were to really zoom in, which I do sometimes on Instagram, you can see predator mites and rove beetles and all the things that build up the ecosystem in here. And it's all working really well. You can see a couple mites in there. So don't let the mites in the soil scare you. Mites in the soil are beneficial, and that's great to see. When you see something and you want to freak out, like I mentioned, the soil mites that are in the soil, don't freak out and start calling everybody, say you have mites. What you're looking for is if you have a healthy plant, most likely what's going on is beneficial. The dangerous ones are going to be living in the leaf area. These are two types of beneficial insects that are very commonly used. Oftentimes you'll hear us talk about a third one, rove beetles, which I'll explain a little later in the video. The first place I'm going to start is right here. So let me set these down. Those are the nematodes. These are the Stratiolepsis, I call them Stratiolepsis, but formerly known as Hypoaspis miles. You're always going to hear people call them hypo. Oh, my hypos or Hypoapsis. Those are the predator mites. They come for free in our soil because of the compost. But like I said, buying them guarantees that you have a high number. And let me also show you what they look like in the soil, because they come here, you'll see them just from our top dressing. If you zoom in this area, you'll see a whole bunch of these predator mites. There's also rove beetles in here, and I can't show you the nematodes because they're microscopic. I'm gonna put the predator mites in here. There we go. This is the actual nematode pack. So this talks about the space that you could be used. A lot of times people do beneficials in greenhouses. We have insect screening on our greenhouse. So we can use predatory wasps and some really cool ones. In here, it's better to use the nematodes and the predator mites. This is the smallest pack that they offer, and it's way more than enough for what we're doing. So just get the small one if you have a garden like mine. And so our goal is to keep this in suspension since it's not really water soluble. I'm not gonna just dump it in the water right here. I'm gonna put the water in my can first, then put it directly in there and keep it shaked up the entire time. Dumped all the powder in, and I'm just gonna put some in here. Now I have 1.5 gallons, so I can do a little bit, but I can't be too wasteful because I don't want to run out at the end. One of the thoughts is that if you start an ecosystem brand new with your soil, nature's going to fill it with most everything. And this is a permaculture principle. So when you plant a permaculture garden, you want vines and trees and you want to do everything, or nature's going to fill it with what it wants. To have that control, you can up the numbers by buying more predator mites, more nematodes, and that will allow you to kind of set your own pace for what the ecosystem is going to look like early on, instead of letting it slowly ramp up into the balance that we're looking for. This will kind of skew it.
Thank you, Jeremy. The knowledge that you've given to the growing community has been absolutely invaluable, and we really appreciate it. You know, it seems to me like the most important tool that an organic gardener can have is just the knowledge of which critter is good and which one is bad. In a hydroponic garden, it's best to have only plants and no other living organisms. However, in proper organic soil-based gardens, the idea is to have a large, diverse population of organisms all working together to keep each other in check, much like the human society we live in. Consider your soil a whole micro-universe within itself, with mites, rove beetles, worms, and nematodes all living together in harmony. Now, before we go, there's a couple tricks and tips that we use here in our garden that we wanted to share with you. First, the water you use for starting seeds, taking cuttings, and even hydrating cocoa should be boiled first to sterilize. Bug zappers are now cheap enough to purchase on Amazon. Place them outside your grow tent or even in the corner of your grow room. This is the one we use. We'll leave a link for it in the description. Don't purchase predator insects on Amazon. They've been sitting too long and are most likely dead. And finally, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of eradication. We've just launched our website. The goal of that website is to provide a place to gather all the knowledge and products that you need to have a successful garden. Please check it out. Enjoy this video next, and never stop growing.